Hi! Okay, my passage starts on page 208. Right after the break, it says, I disagreed with Lori, and ends on page 209 with, You're a doll, Dad said, and gave me a kiss. To put this passage into context, Lori and Jeanette are trying to calm their mom down as she has a meltdown over the work that she didn't do for school, and so she's going to get fired. At this point in the novel, Jeanette is realizing that she does not want to be like her mom when she grows up. She's realizing how irresponsible she is and that she doesn't really hold that motherly role in the family. Lori tries to stick up for mom and says that she has it tough, but Jeanette argues that she's just the weakest of the bunch. Instead of reading paragraph by paragraph and stopping, I'm going to go ahead and read the whole thing. But as I do that, I want you guys to look for the aspects of alcoholism, materialism, self-reliance, child neglect, and poverty. Okay, so beginning with I disagree with Lori. I thought a strong woman would be able to manage Dad. What he needed was someone who was focused and determined. Someone who would set ultimatums and stick to them. I figured I was strong enough to keep Dad in line. When Mom told me I was so focused it was scary, I knew she didn't mean it as a compliment, but I took it that way. My chance to prove that Dad could be managed came that summer, once school was out. Mom had to spend 8 weeks up in Charleston taking college courses to renew her teaching certificate, or so she said. I wondered if she was looking for a way to get away from all of us for a while. Lori, because of her good grades and art portfolio, had been accepted into government-sponsored summer camp for students with special aptitudes. That left me, at 13, head of the household. Before Mom left, she gave me $200. That was plenty, she said, to buy food for Brian and Maureen and for me for 2 months and pay the water and electricity bills. I did the math. It came out to $25 a week, or a little over $3.50 a day. I worked up a budget and calculated that we could indeed squeak by if I made a little extra money. For the first week, everything went according to plan. I bought food and made meals for Brian, Maureen, and me, and it had been almost a year since the welfare man had scared us into cleaning the house, and it was once again an unholy mess. Mom would have a fit if I had thrown anything out, but I spent hours straightening up and trying to organize the huge stacks of junk. Dad usually stayed out at night until we were in bed, and he would still be asleep when we got up and left in the morning. But one afternoon, about a week after Mom had gone to Charleston, he caught me alone in the house. Hun, I need some money, he said. For what? Beer and cigarettes. I've got sort of a tight budget, Dad. I don't need much, just $5. That was 2 days' worth of food. A half a gallon of milk, a loaf of bread, a dozen eggs, 2 cans of Jack mackerel, and a small bag of apples and some popcorn. And Dad wasn't even doing me the honor of pretending he needed money for something useful. He also didn't argue or wheedle or cajole or ratchet the charm way up. He simply waited for me to fork over the cash, as if he knew I didn't have it in me to say no. And I didn't. I took out my green plastic change purse and pulled out crumbled fives and passed it over slowly. So I said to go ahead and pay attention to child neglect, self-reliance, poverty, and alcoholism. I chose, it's spread out throughout here, but in the second paragraph, I underlined that left me at 13, the head of the household. I said that was child neglect because 8 weeks without your mom and your dad is always gone to a bar or somewhere, and you're left alone at 13 to manage the money and feed your siblings. Just kind of an abstract concept to me. Not only that, but the third and fourth paragraph is self-reliance. She's trying to do the math and how she's going to squeak by with only $200 for 8 weeks. Not only that, but that's the concept of poverty as well. When Rex inserts what he wants the money for, he doesn't try and persuade her to hand over the money for anything else other than beer and cigarettes. I underline that as alcoholism and materialism because he doesn't really care if his children aren't, eating these big meals. All he's worried about is getting money for beer and cigarettes. So, to go ahead and get the basics out of the way, the speaker is Jeanette with insertion of Rex. Occasion, she is left alone to try and manage the money while her mom is gone for 8 weeks. And her dad comes and he asks her for $5 so he can buy some alcohol. And she has an internal conflict with herself whether to say yes or no, but either way, she's going to feel bad. I said that this passage as a whole appeals to emotion, so pathos, because this whole idea of only living off of $200 for 8 weeks is kind of an abstract concept to a lot of us, and I just don't think that we're used to it. Not only that, but I think that there was an entire shift of tone in this passage. At the very beginning of the novel, she had nothing but admiration in her voice as she talked about her dad, especially when he gave her the star. Although it wasn't much, she loved him for it, and she loved the star, even though it was a planet. She didn't care because her dad gave it to her. But now I think it's a turning point for her because she's realizing that she loves him so much, she can't even say no to giving him $5 for something that she knows is harmful towards him. I had originally thought that the first sentence of the last paragraph was a senaton. It says a half gallon of milk, a loaf of bread, a dozen eggs, 2 cans of jack mackerel, a small bag of apples, and some popcorn. But I later realized that it was not because she uses the word and. But nonetheless, I think Jeanette includes this sentence to emphasize how much she could get out of so little. But instead, she's going to go waste that $5 on her dad because she loves him so much and she can't bear the thought to say no. I found a bit of irony in this passage. At the very beginning, she's condemning her mom for always giving in to Rex and always giving him money for alcohol when her and her siblings are starving. But at the very end of the passage, she ends up giving in to Rex and giving him the $5 for alcohol, even though she knows she doesn't have enough to cover the entire 8 weeks that she's alone. I think this contributes to her relationship with her father throughout the entire novel. She's always looking up to him and looking at him in admiration, and now she's hating herself for it. And I think that leads to a loss of innocence and a loss of dependence on her parents, which in the novel as a whole leads to her conclusion of leaving for New York and starting an independent life. So to sum up everything, I think this passage as a whole connects the ideas of alcoholism and her father, poverty in their family, child neglect and independence and self-reliance that her and her siblings have to take on. I think all of these concepts tie together to represent her relationship with her father, with her mother, as well as her independence in the family and her role that she needs to take on because her mother and her father are not present throughout her life. I think this passage is significant because it's the turning point, and Jeanette's starting to change her mindset of her father and her mother and is starting to rely more on herself and her abilities rather than her mother and father to provide for her. Thank you for watching.